Hello and welcome everyone to the session. And today's talk series 4.11 is basically being associated with micro vendors and giving a short introduction about micro vendors. So they basically form the backbone of India's economy and contributing significantly to employment and local economic resilience. They basically offer the investment to larger populations and rather than they are very essential for community resilience. So today's talk series basically highlight the study conducted and the report has recently been launched. So on that note, I would like to call upon Dr. Nick and would request him to please take over the session. Dr. Nick.
Thank you, Nay. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all again. Oh gosh, my camera seems to be doing funny things. Apologies. So welcome to another of the Modern Energy Cooking Services Programme talk series run by Finovista in India, but with our increasingly international focus and content. As Nay has said, this session is about commercial cooking, specifically small eateries, street food vendors and the like, where Finovista carried out a significant study funded by Shell Foundation to look at the potential for electric cooking to help them to improve their lives and their livelihood generation. And I think it's fair to say it's gone very well. Sheetal is going to tell us more about that. The timing of this is significant because, as I'm sure many of you will be aware, and indeed quite probably affected, the situation in the Gulf, in the Straits of Hormuz specifically, is leading to significant concerns about the supply of gas and oil. And so in countries like India, where many people have converted to cooking with LPG as a much cleaner fuel than biomass, they are now having to consider their options quite carefully, and that is generating a lot more interest in the potential of electric cooking. So I'm very pleased that we've been able to work with Finovista over the last 5 years to establish a much higher level of awareness and confidence in electric cooking as a viable option for people in India. And this is both in residential settings, commercial and institutions. And so it's a significant time, hopefully, to draw on that learning. We have carried out an extensive stock take over the last year and published the report of that, which sets out a great deal of what we have learned and our partners around the status of electric cooking, the supply chain of devices, and some other challenges and issues that still need to be resolved. So if you go to the MEX website, grateful if colleagues can provide a link to that in the chat, you'll find out more about it. And also we're going to be publishing a blog post shortly, which just sets out a number of the key resources that have been created by MEX with Finovista over the years that, again, will be useful for you to have in one place. Okay, that's enough of me rambling. Let's move on to the session itself. We've got quite a lot of speakers because we have a number of different perspectives that we're wanting to bring to this discussion. So I'm going to be moderating and trying to keep people to time. The aim is to have some time at the end for some Q&A. Do use the chat function to introduce yourselves. We've got, it seems like 60 or so people who are joining us, which is great. So if you put yourselves, put something in the chat saying who you are, your contact details, other people might want to get in touch. It's all about building a community and helping people to find potential partners. And if you'd like to ask a question of any of the speakers, then also put that in the chat, and I will endeavour to keep track of those and to invite the speakers to respond when we get to the end of the session. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Animesh Mishra, I have worked with a lot. We have worked with ESL extensively over the years, the Energy Efficiency Services Limited. Mr. Mishra is the Chief General Manager and Head of Sales and CCPR at ESL, with over 2 decades of experience across many different sectors. And at ESL, he has pioneered the Channel Partner Program, expanding the distribution network and strengthening brand presence through digital marketing. And he has a general commitment to advancing the digital India, and this has been recognized in many different contexts, and has really helped to drive the extent to which ESL has embraced the potential value of digital communications. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's hand over to Animesh and invite you to speak. Tell us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. IST people, all everyone. Good afternoon and good evening, and good morning to Nick and people in around the world from the other side of the prime meridian. I am very thankful for to Sheetal, Vimal, Kalam, and Nick for having this roundtable talk, and this kind of talk series actually is one of the very much important things that's happening in and around the electric cooking industry. And believe me, recently, due to the geopolitical situation around the world and the kind of requirement, the focus shifting towards the electric cooking because of the gas shortage across the East Asia countries has been phenomenal. And so has the demand for the raw material and supply chain for the induction cooking, infrared cooking, and also the G coil cooking has risen more than 3 times. So we have been in a lot of discussions recently with various stakeholders, from journalists to bilateral, multilateral industries, and also various government of India ministries. And everybody has now recognized this fact that it's time that we go and shift towards electric cooking. It's not just that induction cooking where which I am pioneering as an ESL head sales, or we are as ESL pioneering across this globe. And we want to make a LED movement the same way we did it for Ujala in the country. So coming back to the topic and the focus area today into commercial cooking, and see, there are two parts to commercial cooking. One is the large scale industrial cooking, and another is the small scale commercial cooking, which basically is very from micro to mini macro level, where you have one solid structure shops to even the normal cart wheel shops, fast food joints, which are having. And then you have commercial industrial cooking, where you have factory and hospitals which are cooking for more than, basically we define that as to be more than 5,000 people cooking per meal. So that we categorically define as the higher segment. Rest below falls under the category of, say, small scale like restaurants and all that, which do cooking on the order, a la carte way. So now there has been a lot of discussion in and around. People are We have been discussing with lots of restaurant owners and a lot of hoteliers, even chefs, with the help of our partners in India, Finovista, and the support that we are getting from Shell Foundation for the initiative. We have been started talking to micro entrepreneurs who would be likely be have manifold benefits of having it, because the scarcity of LPG has not even not only there is a scarcity, but it has given rise to a different market, that there is the gas which is selling at higher price, and then there is alternate fuel. People have started again going back to tandoor cooking and various methods in the areas which is not so urbanized. So bringing this commercial cooking has become very important. And I think the government from our side is also being very keen and showing interest, and they would probably be taking up the load factor, the power factor, which has to be there to support this kind of initiative. Because suddenly, in the global scenario, if we see, India is one of the highest consumer of electricity and energy when it comes to per person usage, which is there. And then when we see that the load, which is not only increasing because of electric cooking, it will be your electric EV charging system, the cars are being charged, even the battery backup is being made. So we have solar coming in, but most of the solar, if you see, which is being there, cannot support electric cooking in very efficient manner. It can support your normal grid supply. It can support the normal appliances of the household, which is consuming less than 1000 watt in energy. So now the most important part was there are two focus area: domestic and commercial. And commercial being one of the most regular way of cooking, where you have higher wattage equipments being used. So it has become very much important that a backbone is being created so that the supply chain of the energy is very reliable and stable. And that is very important, that which we are looking at. And I would once again reiterate, this is the time when we can shift to induction. Crisis makes people innovate, and this is the ultimate crisis for people in electric cooking arena. Thank you.
Thank you, Animesh. Thank you for setting the scene so well. And as you say, there are very big differences between the different segments of sort of cooking groups. It's interesting also, the load on the grid is a significant concern for discoms. A lot of the cooking done by street food vendors and other commercial providers is done in the daytime. Maybe not the kind of the final fry up for the customer, but a lot of it is done in the day, and that helps to share the load. Okay, great. That's a context setting for India, but we're now going to jump to Kenya, where Ms. Karen Atieno, if I've pronounced that right, has been doing some work looking at the market and the situation in Kenya for commercial cooking. So keen to hear her insights. Ms. Atieno is the team leader of covering laboratory operations at Kijani Testing Limited in Kenya. She works in the area of laboratory operations, testing and evaluation of clean energy technologies, supporting efforts focused on sustainable energy solutions and technology assessment. Her work involves technical operations relating to energy technologies with a focus on ensuring quality, performance evaluation, and operational effectiveness within clean energy systems. Karen is an alumna of Dedan Kimathi University of Technology and has professional experience in laboratory management and renewable energy related technical operations. So, Ms. Atieno, what are you seeing in Kenya? Would you like to share your observations, please?
Thank you so much, Dr. Nick, for that elaborate introduction. And once again, to the organizers of this platform, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm out in the field, and in case there is any technical hiccup or you cannot hear me, please do let me know. I prepared a small presentation to guide my discussion and the presentation today. And so just a moment, allow me to share my screen.
Thank you. We can hear you. Sometimes the signal comes and goes, but do you need to be given permission to share your screen then? Can Nay or Satyam help with that?
Pardon, Dr. Lee?
Are you able to share your screen, or does someone who's organizing this need to give you permission? Oh, good. Here you are.
Okay. Thank you. So Tijani was involved in conducting a landscaping study for commercial cooking framework in Kenya. And this involved just understanding who are the players in the commercial cooking market in Kenya, the energy consumption patterns of the various businesses, cost implications on fuels for those who are not using electricity and even for those who are using electricity, the kind of tariffs that the commercial cooking businesses, the bandwidths of tariff where they belong, and how the load profile of the commercial cooking would compare to the national load profile, and also the ability of electric cooking appliances to the commercial cooking businesses menus, and also the status of energy access. And so the objective of this study was primarily to see the possibility of Kenya Power, that is the utility company in Kenya, developing a tariff or tariffs that would be favorable for commercial cooking enterprises. And so that was generally the scope of the study. And how this was done is that it was a combination of our focus was, as I said, primarily on commercial cooking, and the primary goal was to generate evidence of everything happening within the sector. And yeah, the objective of and also with primary reason to develop tariffs for commercial cooking. And so the way we define commercial cooking is any business that sells food for profit. And so that's excluded institutions like schools, hospitals, and even food manufacturers. So this study was done in 3 cities in Kenya, the 3 major cities, that's Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu. And towards the end of the study, we did a tariff rebate experiment with 20 businesses of different segments. And so the methodology encompassed the key informant interviews, a bit of desk research, and also survey for the different business enterprises that are available in Kenya. Now, digging deep into our findings, segmentation was quite a challenge in Kenya because there was no existing literature that could point us directly to the segments that were available. And so we used the regulatory framework that was available, bringing down from the commercial cooking enterprises down to the formally operated, meaning the ones that comply with the country's regulation and the primary requirements for running a commercial establishments, and then the ones that are having informal setting. So those were the 2 main categories of the commercial cooking segments in Kenya. And further into the segments, we went further to see which ones belong to the formal category and which ones belong to the informal. Of course, the formal, most of which we are aware, are the bakeries, catering services, the restaurants, and even the hotels and the dining resorts. The informal is where it got very interesting into the Kenyan context, which I believe could be applicable even to the rest of the globe, maybe just different namings. So we had kibandas. These are businesses, they have a permanent structure. Some have permanent structure and some have temporary structure. So it's a defined space of business, meaning every day you will find them on the same spot. So sort of they have a defined point of operation. Then we have had the other side, the street vendors. We categorize them under the multiple cooking vendors. So those that provide different categories of food at the same time, and then the single cooking vendors. So like maybe just one, maybe roasting meat by the roadside, or even roasting smokies and sausages by the roadside. And so that is how segmentation was done for this particular study. Next, we looked at energy access and connectivity. And I think one thing that was interesting for this case is that we had businesses that had never experienced blackout, as opposed to the framework, the common analogy that there is quite a bit of blackout going on in Kenya. And so some business could not operate because of maybe regular blackouts. The study showed otherwise. that there are actually even businesses that have never experienced blackout. And so this was a good response in that it's in terms of electricity availability, that was not an issue. Of course, with the various grid connections, some having the single phase supply, most actually, a few having three phase, particularly for the the ones that are formally founded and have very large operations, and a few were using generators here and there. But the interesting insight was that there are people who have never experienced blackouts in the country, businesses. The next thing is we checked into how much fuel they use. And one thing that came out is that LPG is quite consumed, as well as charcoal. So the issue of fuel stacking is still even as it was in the households, or like it is in the households for some cases. It's also seen in the commercial space. But the most interesting bit is that most of the bakeries have turned to primarily do most of their baking using electricity, as opposed to the other businesses or the other segments that we had defined earlier. So LPG and charcoal was what was primarily used, and of course electricity also a bit here and there, with restaurants and even hotels using most of it in their food preparation, but not as much as compared to charcoal. Going further, this is what it looks like for segments like I described earlier. The bakeries made quite the case for electric cooking, and food vendors, that is street vendors, the home vendors, most of them really rely on charcoal and LPG to make their food preparations. Moving on to the electric appliances, one thing we noticed is that the businesses are able to afford the electric appliances. And these are just some that they could afford: the microwaves, or rather what is available for them. The microwave, the electric kettle, electric pressure cooker, there was quite the uptake there. Induction cooktops, the hot plates, air fryers, toasters. And so the issue of availability of the appliances was not an issue. But one thing we realized is that quite a number of appliances, particularly the ones that were used by the commercial cooking businesses, that they were quite small in terms of capacity, because you realize like maybe a kibanda would prepare up to maybe 20 kgs of a single food, say beans, and that getting an EPC that is affordable to them that can prepare that amount of food was quite a task. And most of them were citing issues of cost, and particularly what stood out is the issue of size, because conversations with the hotel owners indicated that the hotels are able to afford the appliances, but the issue was affording appliances that have the capacity to meet their daily demand, particularly for the local delicacies that are usually demanded. And the other issue that came up is that there is a little going on in terms of local equipment development. So a lot of this equipment are imported from outside of Kenya, and most are imported in small capacities. So that was an interesting finding. We looked at their menus further, just to see the kind of composition, because if we are going to inform on their cooking methods and the kind of appliances they need, then it would be of importance to understand the kind of menus that are served in the various establishments. And of course, for the formally set businesses segment, most of them are prepare local food, local dishes, and even continental dishes, while the street vendors and the kibandaski, usually they prepare mostly the local dishes and the street foods. So things like smokies, things like the famous chapati in Kenya. And so that is what the distribution of the menus look like, with local dishes taking the lead, and then fast foods, and then street foods, and of course the continental and the baked goods as well. We dive deeper to understand the Kenyan tariff framework, what that would look like. And so what I'm projecting, something like AC1, meaning small commercial one. So they're in tiers. So there is 1, there is 2, there is 3. So small commercial, and then we have commercial and industrial also in tires. And the various tires, they pay different amounts of money per kilowatt hour of electricity. And so we went further to understand how does that map into the commercial cooking businesses. And so our findings indicated that mostly hotels and resorts, they mostly have three-phase connections, and they fit in the commercial and industrial 1 to 3. And then the rest of the businesses, the rest of the categories, the restaurants, the caterers, the bakeries, kibandas, the mobile vendors, street vendors, that is, and then even the home-based operators, most of them were relying on small commercials. So most of them belong to that particular category of tariffs. And the reason why this was important is because it was aimed to inform Kenya Power if they are to develop a tariff that would support commercial cooking, then they also needed to understand which categories actually do the commercial cooking businesses actually belong. We went further.
Sorry, Karen.
To map.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I realise that you've got still quite a few slides. Can you maybe go through the remaining slides more quickly? I think you've done a really good piece of work here, and I think people are going to want to have a chance to really read about it. So maybe you can highlight where it'll be available. Apologies for the shortage of time. Thank you.
Okay. So let me do this real quick. So we went ahead to map the country's load profile, what it looks like during the seasons, and also mapping out the commercial cooking businesses profiles. And one thing we noticed is that a lot of cooking began from around 8 p.m. and then it peaks between 12 p.m. to around 4 p.m. And then there is very little going on after 4 p.m. And so when we did the commercial cooking rebates, this is what the rebates looked like. So this was after having discussions with the partners, that is MEX, Gamus East Africa, and the Kenya Power. And so we did a 25, we defined the times, that is between 5 to 6, offering a 25% rebate during the peak hours, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., because that is when the country's load profile is at highest. And so it would be impossible for Kenya Power to offer a tariff within that bandwidth. And so with the experiment also, we avoided the rebates between that bandwidth. And also the off-peak period, so we were encouraging cooking during when the country's load profile was low, so between 10 and 5 a.m., 50% rebate. Some of our findings is that most of the businesses actually could not shift their operations due to customers' constraints, because most of the business are in the a la carte format, except for maybe kibandaskis mostly. And also the street vendors, they have a defined time for when they start their businesses. But something interesting here is that there were 2 bakeries that successfully shifted to operating at nighttime, that is between 10 and 5, because particularly we explained to them the tariff shoulders, the various rebate shoulders, and how that was going to benefit them. And so they opted to shift their operations between 10 to 5 to benefit more from the rebates and just have small tasks of decoration and maybe preparation of the cake during the day for when the customers come to pick up. I'd like to pause there, and maybe I'll get questions at the end of this. And any
That's really helpful.
Thank you.
No, that's a great piece of research you've got there, and I think it's the kind of piece that we want for lots of different settings. I know we're looking at similar things in different states of India to understand the demand profile and the kind of implications that people will face as they change. Okay, so I'm now going to hand over to Sheetal, who is going to talk about the study that has been done in India. So Sheetal Rastogi has over 16 years of experience in developing strategy and execution roadmaps for new business initiatives with a diverse background of working with banking, finance, manufacturing, and specialty retail. At Finovista, she's led a great many clean cooking related initiatives, including induction stove testing for the Global Leap Awards, as well as the talk series on the Modern Energy Cooking Forum. and she has planned grassroots training initiatives for livelihood creation. Shital firmly believes that women's leadership in the clean cooking sector is key to accelerating lasting change across India and in their own communities. And she is a mentor for the 2023 and 2025 Women in Clean Cooking mentoring program and has been recognized as an Energy Dozen 2024 participant. Shital, I will, without further ado, hand over to you, invite you to tell us about your study.
Hi, Nick. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I think we are really running over time. So I'll keep it brief and maybe run through certain slides which have already been covered. But thank you so much for everyone to join us today. And thank you to the previous panelists. Karen, I think I learned a lot from the findings that you presented and would really be interested to go through the detailed report. Okay, so we've already got the context about the importance of the micro food vendors, sector in India. But just I would like to highlight a couple of things over here, which is to say that, as mentioned, that this sector especially is very important because it's supporting low income and migrant populations and has considerably low entry barriers, requires vendors to have a minimum investment with no requirement for advanced education, and therefore it becomes a very lucrative opportunity and a very big livelihood support for the economy. It won't be incorrect to say that after agriculture, this adds to be the most important segment in terms of providing livelihood support to the bottom of pyramid. And when we are talking about micro food enterprises, it's not only hinting to street food vendors, it also caters to small home-based businesses and food enterprises who are doing cooking and selling either packaged food from their homes or tiffin services. It's hints to grocery outlets in India, which are just selling, tea alongside the groceries that they sell every day. It hints to the large SHG community base of women enterprises who are doing this food-based, cooking initiatives at their end. So, yeah. Having said that, while these businesses are resilient, their daily cooking realities are challenging, and we need to understand that economic vulnerability comes to be one of the most key challenges. And commercial LPG, specifically when we are looking at times like now, we know that there is a high increase in prices, and refilling the cylinders and continuing their sustained operation becomes a lot of challenge for these vendors. And coming on to the aspect of, the aspect of ambient heat and thermal exhaustion, those this seems to be a smaller issue, but understanding that for these vendors to continue their operations for longer hours, this adds to be a very big deterrence because the vendors are working in extremely hot and congested environments, and because of cooking with open flames, and they are not they cannot use cooling fans, etc. Because of the flame getting disturbed, this again adds to an issue. Again, in terms of the health aspect is there, in terms of constant inhalation of this high smoke exposure that the vendors have, specifically when they're cooking with traditional fuels. And in our project, since we've also worked in the area of Bihar, we've seen numerous number of vendors cooking with coal, and that adds to further issues. Operational hassles by using the traditional fuels, in terms of the low efficiency of these burners, adds to the problem itself. And last but not the least, in terms of the aspect of burden of maintaining the cleanliness and hygiene, because of the extreme soot deposition, there is this challenge that which is inevitably there for the vendors to maintain the hygiene, not only at the counters, but spending a lot of time in terms of cleaning their vessels, etc. I won't take much time. We've all talked about it, the previous speakers, but just want to add one bit of the thing for those of us who are joining us from outside India, that we've in the past 2 months seen multiple news that highlights in different states that we see the labor movement back to the rural areas because they are not able to sustain their operations with this increase in price. We need to understand that before me, we had the speaker from ESL and Animesh ji talked about hotels and restaurants. They have the luxury to actually still increase their price, which can be absorbed by their consumers. But in the case of street vendors or micro food vendors, their customers itself, the kind of profile that they have, they would not be able to, like, absorb a lot of price increase, and therefore it's very the prices of things at the street food vendor counters have been very very static over the past couple of years, and they cannot like really pass on the increased price inflation to their customers. Coming on to the aspect of the project itself, we started this project with a simple question that can electric cooking be a cleaner, safer, and a more economically viable option for the street food vendors? The primary objective of the study was to look at whether there is a quantifiable impact on the livelihood creation and income generation for street food vendors. Of course, in the process, we had to look at the technical suitability of the e-cooking devices. We had to also understand in terms of the supply chain aspects and the readiness for the devices and their aspects of adaptability, and understand that what are the key barriers in terms of technology, finance, behavioral, and other ecosystem aspects into this. With this, I'll jump on to the study itself. So we followed a comprehensive methodology which had three phases. It started with a comprehensive baseline. The pilot was implemented for 760 street food vendors across the area of Delhi and different districts in Bihar, and we looked at the impact of the entire pilot and technology deployment. And at the end of 3 months, we've also seen that what was the overall impact. There was a big component in terms of working with the vendors very closely on ground, and our partners. We also have J Wires who's joining us today. So in Bihar, we partnered with the State Livelihood Mission. So in Gaya, JWires was one of our partners, and we also partnered with the Street Food Vendors Association. And there was a comprehensive training and capacity building at all levels. Coming on to the findings of the baseline, they are very comprehensive, but just for the interest of times, I will take you through the key findings. Coming on to the socioeconomic profile, I've already highlighted this, but it was again validated by the data that came up. Women vendors make up, like, the contribution of women is very significant. Either we found that the representation of women was at the counters where they were independently or together handling the operations, or we also found out that there was a lot of contributions in a concept called as base kitchen, which was mostly their home kitchens from where they pre-made the stuff and bought to the cooking counters. It is a very lucrative kind of job profile for younger people also. So in terms of the age profile, we found that 71% of, like, vendors were lesser than 40 years of age, and the educational profile, of course, like I shared with you, that it has a low entry barrier, and therefore it's a very good livelihood opportunity. What's also very significant is the impact that this sector has on the overall economy. In the vendors that we worked along, we could find that across 760, like, these vendors, we had each and every counter was supporting additional 1.7 jobs, and therefore we can see the amount of livelihood support that this segment provides. And when we are looking at the business operations and in terms of their annual or the daily sales, etc., 60% of the vendors reported their daily sales up to 2,500, and 63% of the vendors were supporting or servicing more than 50 customers daily. But we had in the entire cohort, it was a mixed one, and we had vendors who were doing as low as 10 customers per day and going up to like 100 customers to 200 customers per day. And 67% operated throughout the day. Now, this becomes important that the operations of these street food vendors, we could find that there are different kinds of vendors. Some were specifically operating and putting their stalls in front of schools, and they had their stalls closer to academic institutions, and they had very smaller, like, times of operations, 3 to 4 hours specifically, and they were catering to that kind of a segment. In many others, we found that they have, like, fixed spaces where they are working mostly throughout the day, and have a cooking operations which was around 7 to 8 hours in a day. uh, what they were really cooking, there was a very diverse menu at the street vendors, and it spanned right from the tea coffee stalls to stalls which were doing meal preparations to the ones who were preparing snacks. And therefore we found out that but still the stalls which were there for tea and coffee, that the ones that we are working with, there was a significant amount of stalls that were doing tea and coffee. There was also a lot of stalls which were doing these fried snacks, which could come in the form of, like, the daily snacks in India, which are sold like samosas and pakoras, etc. And then there was a lot of, like, vendors who were selling steamed based food, whether it's like steamed momos, whether it's steamed corn, etc. And there was again a diverse cooking process which was followed. When we talk about the cooking energy, the vendors that we were working along with, 95% of them were using LPG as their primary cooking fuel. 4% of the vendors were dependent upon the traditional fuels for their primary cooking need. Coal was one of the dominant fuels because we were working in the area of Bihar, and the primary fuel over there in terms of the traditional was coal. And we found that less than 1% of the vendors were also using e-cooking as their primary cooking energy. Um, this slide is very interesting. It talks about the fact that when we looked at the energy access for the vendors, we found out that 96% of the vendors were grid connected, and 60% of them had commercial electrical connections. But were they really? But cooking was not imagined as a use case for electricity, and therefore we could see that the expenditure of their things on electricity versus their expenditure on cooking fuel, there was a significant difference on that, because at this point of time before the pilot, they were using electricity for very low wattage appliances. I'll talk about that in my next slide. And most of their energy expenditure was going in LPG, and which ranged from 10% to a higher of up to 30%. When we talk about the electrical appliances, I told that most of them were using very low wattage kind of appliances, and you can see that they had table fans, they had lights, LED boards, mixer, grinders, phone chargers, etc. So quite low wattage. Yes, Nick, you're giving me a heads up, but I will still take some 7 minutes. I need that because I'll be otherwise rushing through this. Yeah. So coming on to what so in terms of the pilot findings, so these were the three kinds of technologies which were implemented. It was not just induction cooktop. In order to address the user adoption barriers and to take the fact in mind that there is a diverse cooking, accessories and vessels that these vendors use. We also introduced infrared cooktop, which had compatibility across, different kinds of metals and not just steel-based vessels. Uh, so I have already talked about training. Yeah, so when we talked about the adoption journey, we saw that, immediately no one switched on to electric cooking. Month one, we saw that, people were just experimenting, maybe doing simple foods, doing it for smaller hours, and focusing more on the primary cooking fuel that they were earlier using, but started to experiment. We saw that, this experimentation moved on to a growing confidence, with them experimenting with more diverse kinds of, like, cooking menus which were available at their counters, and doing more a higher sustained operations with electric cooking. And then we saw them, at the end of 3 months, getting more closely integrated with the electric cooking in their daily operations. And we saw them performing tasks which they thought very, they were wondering about in terms of frying, etc., or doing like roti puffing, etc., on electric cooking devices. When we talk about, what is the shift that we could see, there was a very positive impact, and we could see that from 1%, we had 24% of the cohort now using electric cooking as their primary cooking fuel. They were still using LPG alongside for specific requirements or more as a backup fuel. And we also saw the reduction in terms of the traditional fuel getting from 4% to 1%. Uh, in terms of other associated benefits, like I talked about the challenges of the street food vendors, we found that vendors reported a reduction in the ambient heat, and that actually helped reduce their fatigue, and supported them in terms of sustaining longer hours of operation. We also saw the reduction, vendors reporting the reduction in smoke within their kitchen environment, a very positive impact on cleanliness and hygiene, and in terms of, a safer cooking alternative. Now, coming on the impact of the livelihood creation and the impact on incomes and savings, there was a net saving of, on an average, 15.9 kgs per vendor per month, and 75% of the vendors reported an increase in income, which was driven by multiple factors. Cost savings is one aspect to it, but because of, other associated aspects, the vendors were now able to increase their average order value and look at, like, giving more time to servicing their customers. And there was also a report of the increase in the footfall in terms of the cleanliness and hygiene of the outlets, and in terms of their faster cooking times and the ability to service the customers faster. There was a very positive impact in terms for the women vendors, and also the fact that we looked at comprehensively integrating women in the entire pilot as enumerators, as trainers, capacity builders, and also as the end vendors. And that was very, very encouraging. When we talk about the LPG avoidance, and we calculate the impact on the carbon mitigated and the cost that could have cost is avoided in terms of LPG switch to electricity, because we all know that 60% of the LPG that India uses is imported, and therefore when we project this to a 7 to 8% of this entire number of street vendors, the impact could be significantly very high. In terms of the key barriers, of course, like I said, that there was a behavioral inertia. It's not something that we can switch immediately, and it requires more careful hand holding and initial awareness. cookware compatibility, specifically in the cases where induction cooktop was deployed, was definitely there because they could not use their existing cookware on that. And of course, there are limitations in terms of the technology because over here, the vendors were also having 2 burners, 3 burners. For them, using and switching 100% to a single hob induction cooktop or infrared becomes a little challenging. And high heat requirements sometimes for vendors, it says that, there's insufficient heating power for vendors. Uh, yeah, I think I'll stop here, Nick, and just want to say that we'll all be, we've already sent the invites, and the next talk series, we will be having a similar session which talks about the clean cooking in India's energy transition. We will be integrating it with the recently launched report by Niti Aayog, which talks about the net zero. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Sheetal. Apologies for rushing it. It's
Yeah.
a big study, as is indeed Karen's report as well. So I think lots of opportunity to go into this in further detail. And I see there's some good interest coming from the audience with some questions.
And I think
I
we'll
will.
just post the link of the study, which is already published on Shell Foundation's website. And if anybody wants to know more, can go through it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we have 2 more speakers giving their own perspective on the pilot. So let's move quickly on to the next one, who is Mr. Amit Singh. I'm going to pull up. Where's my thing? Here we are. Who is the operations lead at Jivika Women Initiative for Renewable Energy and Solutions, or JWIRES. And he's a renewable energy and development sector professional with over 10 years of experience. And I should say that JWIRES is the body in Bihar that Finovista and others have worked with, and I've seen them on many occasions supporting the transition towards modern technologies in rural Bihar. So their perspective is really valuable and really important to understand. So I'm going to invite Mr. Singh to share his story.
Thank you, Nick. And
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So I am Amit. I'm from Jivika. So Jivika from JWIRES. That is, JWIRES is the part of the BRLPS. That is the SRLM, Bihar SRLM. And the aim of the JWIRES is to promote clean energy and clean cooking and environmental protection and create the livelihood for the rural women. So what about JWIRES? We have JWIRES is the women-led. This setup is completely women-led enterprise and promoted by the BRLPS. And we are 6+ years experience in the energy cooking and O&M services, and also retail network. We have our operation is in 18 districts of Bihar and also some other state also. We have 400 micro enterprises, that is Solar Soft called, and Solar Mart. And our organization, this JWIRES, is completely owned by 100% management is done by the women only. So I'm directly come to the electric cooking, what we are doing in Bihar. So why and what is the benefit by JWIRES? So because JWIRES is the part of the Jivika, and Jivika has reach in Bihar is entire household. You can say there is 1.5 crores women directly engaged with us. So our presence is very good at the local level. So our target market, our target market is always like rural area, peri-urban, and semi-urban, and we are also working with the street food vendors in terms of electric cooking. Why JWIRES? What is the key opportunity with us? Because we have a strong network of SHG at the local level. We have see the scenario of the Bihar, the electrification, that is around 100%. There is, of course, not 100%, but near to 100%. And in Bihar, there is the penetration of electric cooking is very low, but there is very high potential. That need to we give them the good good training and awareness and campaign, then we can find out the like lot of potential here. And what it challenges with us, like affordability. So how we address that, the affordability, we address that because Jivika is the our women-led organization, and we have self-help group that the financing facility, so they can easily take the loan and can buy the electric cookpot, and also technology readiness. So we find out like many suggestions from the community. On the basis of that, we can ask to the vendors, and we are modify the systems through through our needs. And also adoption that is addressed by the demonstration, localized support, and incentives in our model. So like we in with 20 24 February like 2023, we have developed one model that is called the business canvas model. So where we can find out like who will be our key partner, what will be our key activity, what will be the value proposition for the electric cooking, the customer relation, how we'll do, who will be our like customer segmentation channels, key resources, how we can like manage the cost, and also how we can generate the revenue. Because we are always think that that is in the business way. And so we, for that, we have created like our supply chain, that is the three level, like four layer of the supply chain. One is supplier, that is backward linkage and J-wire, and retailers. That retailers is our solar mart that is owned and operated by women only. And we create a unique model that is triple C clean cooking champion, that we called it. And that is like each two panchayat, we have one clean cooking champion. So what is the benefit of this clean cooking champion? So she can do the demonstration and effectively awareness and campaign, and most important, like service mechanism that will be very strong because of this triple C in the local area at the panchayat level. So because our presence in the local area is very strong, so like you can see here, like in our cluster level federation meeting, here is our village meeting, our self-help group meeting. So our member go there and aware about the electric cooking, how what is the benefit, that how we can use. So even we did the demonstration at the cluster level federation, at the self-help group. Women participate, women use this, then they can more confident about the system, about the product, and about that the uses, how they can use. Even sometime like we have our sales and installation, so we have our solar mart, so the user can go there and buy that product. And that Didi, like we have triple C clean cooking champions, she going to their house and demonstrate that how to cook and how to use that. Sometimes we did like most of the time we did research also. So we have our researchers, so we can put the data logger, we can put the how to different method of data collection. So our researchers is also visiting at the village, at the household very frequently. So like
Sorry.
what? Yeah.
Thank you. Are you able to wrap up, please? I'm sorry for the pressure on time.
Yeah. So just one more slide. So I'm concluding.
Thank you.
So what business model we are doing? That's like we are trying to. This is the normal business model, but we are trying to figure out like how we can go for carbon credit revenue. So this is our model. That is all sorted out, but we are still struggling on the 4A and 4B and 4C part. So this is also discussion with the MECS and Finovista and many partners, like how we can do that. What is our future plan? So we have planned like in next 6 years, we are going for 1 million electric cooking deployment. That is with World Bank Clean Air Program, and also more than 60,000 in 3 years with Finovista for the micro enterprises. Infrastructure development. So we are planning to set up the assembly line to make that clean cooking here. And also we have strong research and development. We have done 2 research with like IIT Bombay and MECS project, and also one is with Self Foundation, which funding already said by the Sital ma'am. And also we have soft skill and documentation. So we have our training module, we have our campaign module, and all these things is come under we called it e-cell, electric cooking ecosystem, buy local for local. So we are trying to create this model in Bihar to deploy the like 1 million electric cooking system in Bihar in next 6 years. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great number to end on, and it's a great ambition. And in a country like India, and 1 million is a lot, but it's still not everyone by any means. But that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on very quickly. Apologies to Ms. Ria Anil Shahain, who is our last speaker, and she is the co-founder and chief operating officer of CBOS, which is a clean technology company building energy-efficient infrared cooking systems for residential and commercial applications. And she leads the design, operations, and deployment strategy for CBOS, the clean cooking technologies. So, Ms. Shaheen, if that's the right way to refer to you, over to you, please. Do tell us about your work.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick, for the introduction. So I'm Ria. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Cybis Techno Solutions Private Limited. We make decentralized clean cooking solutions for micro entrepreneurs, basically giving a better way of cooking for India, where we have 3 products: grid-operated cooktop, battery-operated, and solar-powered cooktops. So these are the 3 cooktops that we have. One which works on electricity, which can be used for food carts and high usage of street operations, which works on the principle of infrared, where you get uniform heating and which is compatible across all sorts of utensils as well. Coming to the next one, we have Agnit Core, which is our infrared cooktop and is battery operated. So you can use it on the go. So wherever you don't have any source of continuous electricity or it's unreliable source, you can charge the battery while the electricity is there and then use when the electricity is not there, or you can use it on your food carts or tea stalls. Then we have Agnit Solar, which is a solar-powered infrared cooking system, which comes in 4 components. And it comes in variation 750 and 960 watts, which again can be used for tea stall, food carts, even roadside dhabas or high usage of food businesses. So you can cook anything that you have been cooking on your LPG and using the same cooking habits, because it works on the principle of infrared where the heat is radiated, unlike the induction where the magnetic current flows and the heat is generated. So you can fry, give the tadka, pressure cook, roast using any sorts of utensils that is available with you. So we have 2 variations in Agnit Go and Agnit Solar. One comes with 750 and one comes with 960 wattages. So now these are the users that we have been working with. So Manju Devi is a street vendor in Dobhi, Bihar, where she has been selling tea, coffee, omelette, boiled eggs, Maggie. So initially, when we gave her the cooktop, there was a little bit of reluctance where she started by simply boiling, like testing out boiling water, milk, making tea for 4-5 cups initially. And then later, as and when she was confident uh, after using our cooktop, she went on to making 30 to 40 cups of tea at one go, which was approximately 3 to 4 liters. Then they started by boiling eggs also to the capacity of 30 eggs at one time. So I think same observations that Sheetal shared from the Shell Foundation, that initial reluctance was there. But I think later on, when we were able to guide them virtually, and with that, their confidence grew and they were able to trust the cooktop and the new process that they had to adopt. So they were able to then build upon and use it into their regular cooking now. Now, again, another vendor in Gandhinagar, Gujarat, where he's selling Frankies on a roadside cart. So his one of the observations or the insights that we got from him is that I cannot see the flame, and that is why he was not able to judge as to how the cooking was. But I think eventually, when he started using it, he found out that the timing was same as compared to the initial LPG that he was using, which later made him use Agnit as his primary source of cooking. Now another vendor where they have been making the thepla and sabzis in Gandhinagar, and also they have been making Gujarati thalis and serving their clients. So we, with our product, give a grill which helps them to use the rounded vessels as well. So here you can see that the tawa that we use for making rotis, parathas, is being placed on a grill, and then they are using it to make it. Here, the one of our insights was that the auntie, the Sarojben, was very much concerned as to how the taste change would happen because she has been selling this from 4 5 years continuously, and she has been using LPG for making her theplas. Now shifting from LPG to electric cooking, her concern was, is there any taste change that happens, because she has heard that induction gives a little taste change. So that was her concern. But with usage for 1 and 2 weeks where she continuously used the cooktop, she found that there was no change in the taste, and it was the exact product quality that she was achieving on LPG that she could achieve on electric cooking as well. So, so there are two factors when it comes to scaling clean cooking that as manufacturers we are currently catering to. One being the supply chain, because affordable clean cooking is something that the vendors would need. So making the product commercially viable by managing the supply chain is something that we are focusing on. And another being the certification to increase the trust amongst the street vendors. So we have applied for BIS and ISI mark certification, and we are currently under the process. So that makes us one of the 6 companies in India in electric cooking that will have this ISI mark. So this kind of also helps us build a trust that it's not just a clean cooking prototype, but a trusted commercial product that can be used by street vendors to scale and increase their earnings. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's great. And apologies to everyone for running over. That's my shortcomings as a chair. But I think it's been a lot of content that's been really valuable and important, and I hope people are able to follow up. There's been a good amount of chat, people introducing themselves, saying they'd like to know more, and hopefully we'll be able to stimulate other studies in other parts of the world. There's been some questions. I realise people may well have to leave, but there are some questions. So if people are able to stay for a few minutes longer, I will go through some of those. A number relating to the financial cost of, or the upfront financial cost of the electric cooking appliances, and what sort of financial support there could be. Would anyone like to offer any thoughts on that from any of the speakers?
I can take that, Nick, from the so I can take that from the context of the pilot that we have deployed. So the cost of these devices ranges. The cost specifically is a little complicated over here because we are talking about the cost for 3 components. There's a cost for the electric cooktop. There's a cost for the cooking, like, cookware, because there is a little change in that. And then there is a cost for retrofitting, which is required. In our pilot, we saw that when we are deploying specifically anywhere between 1600 watts to 2000 watt induction cooktops, it could range up to 3500, and the vessels could cost additional 20% of their cost. And also, interestingly, the cost for retrofitting for the vendors becomes a little significant. So they spend somewhere between 7 to 15% of their cost on retrofitting. I hope I'm able to answer your question well. Yeah.
And as a small business owner, and obviously if some of these are not registered and regulated, they have access to loans, commercial loans. Would that be fair to say?
So Nick, you've heard the speaker from the SRLM. There is financing which is available at the grassroots level in India through multiple channels. There is a good network of MFIs also that supports with the end user financing. And also with respect to, let me also highlight that when you talk about affordability aspects, we need to also see the operating costs that the vendors are paying when they are refilling one gas cylinder. And some of them who have got significant operations, they're using commercial LPG. In fact, in Bihar, in the pilot, we found out that the coal that they are purchasing is also significantly quite costlier. So when you are looking at the OPEX cost that these vendors are paying, the cost of these devices, which are ranging anywhere between 2,000 to let's say up to 5,000 rupees, is something that they can look at recovering the cost in 6 months from the operational savings that the vendors make. So yeah.
Indeed, yes, they still have to have access to that initial capital, but I'm sure you're right that the return on that investment can come very quickly. And Amit, do you want to say anything about the role of self-help groups? And I think at the local grassroots level, there can often be societies or associations where people can access loans from within the community. Is that also true?
Yeah. So self-help group member can take the loan. That women only can take the loan, and that if they want like 5,000 till 10,000, they can take the loan from the self-help group. And if they want like 20,000, 30,000, then they can take the loan from the either village organization or cluster level federation. So we have like very strong network, and anytime can take the loan for the buying the product. And, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And I remember another point coming back to the kind of return on investment opportunity that we visited the Indian Institute of Management in Bihar, and they were very keen to work with small business owners, because once you start to get that saving against your fuel costs, you then start to have some extra finance. Potentially, you could maybe reinvest that in expanding the business, in maybe having a second burner. And so just helping people think through what their options are as their financial situation improves is I think going to be valuable as well. And Ria, do you want to say anything about the sort of any support that you're aware of to help people access your cooking appliances?
Yes, currently we are manufacturing and we're selling it directly. So I will drop my email as well as contact details, and anyone who's interested, we can shortly get in touch and we can help them.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure if Karen is still on the call. I'm just looking, but there was a question about, Dorothy asked about the tariffs that she referred to and whether they're available nationally. I suspect they were just for the purposes of a pilot, but I don't know if anyone knows more about the situation in Kenya and whether they are introducing tariffs across the country that can support different time of day operation. No. Okay,
Dr. Nick,
there's a question about
I am still here.
Oh, good. Hello, Karen. Hi.
Yes,
Hi. Yes, and comment briefly on that. So that was primarily to test, and so we came up with the various tariff rebate bands, and it's not available throughout the country, but it was a rebate to inform the formulation of the commercial cooking tariffs, which is yet to be implemented.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm sure that's the case. And I know that different time of day tariffs is something that the different discoms in Indian states are also looking at as they look at managing the load. There was a question that someone else has asked about fuel stacking, the extent to which people are combining different cooking fuels for different purposes. Sheetal or Karen, would you like to respond to that?
I'd like to answer that from the Indian context, definitely, that yes, the street vendors do have fuel stacking. Though the stack changes in terms of Delhi NCR, we saw that vendors had LPG and a bit of electric cooking as their fuel stacking. Some of them were also having firewood. In terms of Bihar, the stacking was very different, and we saw that the vendors had the stacking for LPG and coal. And in terms of when we talk about how they were using both fuels, it was very interesting that uh, they had clearly identified that if they have to prepare some traditional things like rotis, they have to prepare some traditional things like littis, where they need that kind of a roasting requirement, they were still relying on the traditional fuels for coal, firewood, and biomass. And in terms of, other processes of boiling, or, they have to do quick fry, etc., they were doing on LPG. So it wasn't there for all of the vendors, but there was substantial fuel stacking, which was noticed in both regions, both in Delhi as well as in Bihar for India. Yeah, I think Karen can chair for Kenya.
From our observation in Kenya, fuel stacking was dependent on the kind of segments, and we saw a lot of firewood and charcoal stacking, particularly for the informal segments, and charcoal and LPG, particularly for the formal segment. And so the reasoning behind something like the informal segment was the ease availability of particularly firewood and also the charcoal. But for the formally, or rather even the large hotels, charcoal was preferred in the preparation of certain dishes, and LPG was primarily used for most of their cookings. So that is how the distribution was like.
Thank you. And another question that I've seen is around the access to electricity. Sheetal, I think you did mention that the street vendors had already got access to electricity, but needed maybe to have an upgrade, as it were, to be able to support higher demand and higher loads. Have I got that right? And what proportion of street vendors in India are connected to the grid? Do you have any information about that?
So, Nick, we had comprehensively surveyed around 1,100 vendors before working with 760 vendors. And I think 96% of the vendors were connected. However, when we talk about that, what were their sanctioned loads? Mostly the vendors had 1 kilowatt and 2 kilowatt of meters or sanctioned capacity. But like I said, that there was a very interesting energy paradox, that they have never reimagined their spaces and operations of cooking with electricity. And therefore, the current or the existing loads that they had was very consistent with the kind of equipments that they were using for electricity at their outlets. And the details that I shared, that equipments like table fans, ceiling lights, or pause machines, or mobile chargers. So when you do not have any requirement, only there is no need to take a higher wattage or a higher sanction load connection. So that is definitely there. But of course, there is a substantial amount of street vendors who have these mobile carts who are moving. Of course, they are not grid connected. But still, at the end of the day, that's not the only definition for the micro food vendors, as I highlighted, that it encapsulates a big gamut of all those micro entrepreneurs that we are talking about who have their fixed places of operations, who are doing these home-based activities, who are working with SHG communities. So that there's a very wide scope. Yeah.
Certainly, yes, thank you. And I'm conscious of time, but I really find this a fascinating and important subject. So I'm going to carry on. On the point, just to clarify for people who maybe are not familiar with the Indian electricity system, as I wasn't to start with, the concept of a sanctioned load. I've not come across it anywhere else, but basically means that whether you're a homeowner or a business, you identify what you think your electricity needs are going to be, and you agree with your DISCOM what's called a sanctioned load, and that will set the maximum that you can draw at any one time, and the DISCOM has to guarantee to provide that 24/7. And if you're starting to have more equipment and more load, then you can request and pay for a higher sanctioned load. And that is how the DISCOMs manage the load across the state. And so, as Sheetal says, if you are only using it for charging a phone or mobile or lights, then you would only choose to have a lower load. I think the other thing that I've not heard very much about with the commercial cooking is that in quite a number of cases, and I think this is true of street vendors as well as the big, more professional operations, there is quite a distinction between the sort of pre-cook, where you kind of do an initial form of cooking. Maybe you're boiling, you're preparing the basic product, and then the final cooking is just to serve to the client. And that may be, obviously, that would be done at the point of sale. And the pre-cook may be done back at the home. And I think, again, the time of day tariff and the opportunity to do some of that pre-cooking, if there's a cheaper tariff period, maybe at night or in the morning, is where the biggest opportunities lie. And I think that's something to keep an eye on when you're studying cooking requirements and stacking in the commercial sector, this distinction between pre-cook and point of sale cooking. Would anyone like to comment on that?
So,
I can,
Nick,
Amit can take.
yeah, ma'am. Yeah, so Nick, in case of Bihar, like we did this survey and we did this research. So previously it was not now government going to shift three time zone. Like there will be one daytime, that is a peak hours, and night time. But that time it was not, so that like in our study, like we didn't highlight this point. That like this time zone, if they are cooking there, the like cost of the cooking will be high, and that this time will be low. But now this is just recently government is especially in Bihar, just recently government highlighted this point, and maybe next month or upcoming 1 or 2 months that system will be applied for the Bihar also. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
And Nick, just to add to the point that Amit made, we did not look at the specific timings, but the concept that you are talking about, we call it as a base kitchen and the end counter. For street vendors or these micro vendors, the activity that happens in this base kitchen, which is primarily their home, is significant. Therefore, that the statistics that I shared about the contribution of women, maybe you don't find them at the stalls, maybe they are not behind the moving carts, but they are definitely behind the kitchens which are preparing this food. They are behind the kitchen in which all this cleaning activity of all these vessels is happening, and therefore there is a significant impact. So I'll just say that.
Okay, no, that's an important point to point out. Okay, I don't know if I think we might have lost Karen. Otherwise, I was going to invite her to comment from the Kenyan perspective. Okay, well, I've let us run far too long. I apologize again. Hopefully, people are here because they're still finding it useful. If anyone has a last question, otherwise, I'm going to call it today. As Sheetal says, that the next talk series is going to be focused on the big strategy document which has come out from the government think tank Niti Aayog on how India can achieve its net zero ambitions, and they make very clear that moving towards cleaner cooking cleanest in the complete sense of being both green energy and clean in the kitchen is going to be a key contributor to that net zero ambition. And I'm excited to hear that we can have a discussion about that. And Sheetal, you had the dates for that. It's coming up soon, I'm sure.
Yes, it's in June. We will share the details very soon with everyone. We'll send invites and mailers and promotions. So yeah, I think I'll just end by thanking everyone who's joined us, and especially the panelists for accepting our invite and being here today. And I just want to say one more thing. I think it's very special that Ria has joined us. Ria is also a part of the Energy Dozens initiative that MEX is supporting along with FSR Global. So she's one of the as Energy Dozens for this year, which is very special because this is the first time that a specific segment of clean cooking is happening. And I think this is a key initiative to bring in more women faces in the room. And thank you all to all the panelists who have joined us today. And we look forward to a great session that's coming forward in June.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you, Nick.